It all starts with me, 25 male, in the shower at no later than 7 p.m. When I get out of the shower and begin drying myself, I notice my sink mirror is a lot more steamed up than the rest of the glass panes and my other mirror. I thought this is a little odd, but thought nothing of it until I noticed the paint and brick crumbling around the edges of the mirror. This mirror is tacky, no frame, just screwed in and some silver caps placed on top of those screws. So I just assume it's because the house is tacky too, which it was. Skip a few hours, and I get out of bed to piss. I don't bother turning the lights on because it's lit up by the light on the landing. I finish up and start washing my hands, but I notice the mirror isn't really reflecting that well. Much more like it was slightly transparent. Then I noticed something that made my blood run cold. I noticed what looked like the reflection of the lenses of glasses on the other side of the mirror. I thought to myself, if that's actually glasses, that's no further than 2 meters away. This obviously freaked me the fuck out, and I just noped off back to bed. A couple of days went by, and I just kind of forgot about it until one day I thought about just checking. So I grabbed a screwdriver, and as soon as I reached up to turn the first screw, I heard clattering behind it. Instead of deterring me, this emboldened me. I had to know what the fuck was going on. I unscrewed the mirror, and to my horror, I found the mirror was in fact a two-way. Not only that, but I found the mirror was hiding a gaping hole in the wall, which led to about a 4-foot gap. At the end of the crevice, another hole in the wall covered up by a plastic clip thing. Hard to explain, but kind of like a plate that clipped into this hole in the wall. So what do? Grab my toothbrush, stick my head and arm through my hole, and poke off this plate. It falls to the ground, and I'm hit with a wave of cold air like I've just opened a window. I look through and notice old red bricks. Bricks that look 200 years old, even further behind the hole. At this point, I'm mortified, but I felt the need to know what this place was. Who, if anyone, was watching me? I thought to myself, if I leave it too late, I'll never know. I've already left too much evidence of me finding out. If the clattering wasn't a person, the plate and two-way surely was. So if I left the plate on their side of the wall, they'd know. I went to my tool cupboard and grabbed my hammer. I couldn't be even slightly bothered that the landlord would definitely kick me out for smashing his wall down, but I just felt compelled to find out. I began knocking my wall down. It took about 5 minutes to make a hole big enough for me to fit through. I climb in and begin on the other wall when I hear a few people talking. This deters me none. If anything, I smash faster. Once I begin making a hole big enough, I notice this room I'm about to enter is fucking huge, like warehouse-sized. It's old and abandoned looking, dusty and decrepit. Once I've made a hole big enough, I climb through. Oddly, I still hear people talking, so I thought, I've got the drop on 'em. So I start creeping about, taking in the sights of this old warehouse, for lack of a better word. A collapsed roof, concrete flooring, multiple floors, though some had fallen through. I get closer and closer to the chatter until I notice an old 1960s-ish television. The one with the dials that was wide and had the TV in one half and just some speakers or something in the other. Still on, yet no signs at all of wires or any power source for that matter. As I get closer to the TV, it's playing a talk show. The voices I heard all became clear. When I was about 3 meters away, I noticed a sort of dilapidated wall on my right. Behind this wall was a throne of bricks. Atop the throne, a man, wearing gray overalls, a pair of thick, squared glasses, and greasy, receding hair. As he makes eye contact with me, he doesn't move. He just murmurs, "You're not supposed to be here." He repeats this while a gradually increasing smile adorns his dirty face. You're not supposed to be here. You're not supposed to be here. You're not supposed to be here. He progressively gets louder and more erratic until I decide, fuck this. I run for the hole, and as I'm climbing through, I look back expecting him to have begun chasing me. He hasn't moved. All I could see was the tips of his boots poking around the wall. All the while, he'd now began maniacally laughing. I get to the street and look to the side this warehouse should have been on. Nothing, just more houses, lit up with life like people lived there. I was utterly confused, but not confused enough to go back and check. So I left and went to my mom's around the corner. I told her all about it, and she didn't believe a word I said. She actually got other family members around to find out if I was okay, and the only person who could see I was genuinely terrified was my brother. I don't know if he believed me, but he could tell I thought it was true. After a very rough sleep, I woke up and went into the living room to ask what they thought. They couldn't make heads or tails of me, so I asked my brother. He said, "I believe you." So I asked him to help me, and he said, "Whatever you need." I almost cried knowing that I at least had someone who trusted me. I said to him, "Grab a screwdriver." I don't know why, but I just thought with all the weird stuff like the no power, the weird talk from the guy, and the fact there was no fucking warehouse on the outside, there'd be a need for it. I took him to my house, and I could see on his face he was just entertaining me. He didn't really believe. He just wanted to help his mentally ill little brother at this point, something my mom was saying about all this. We got to the bathroom, and to my shock and simultaneous roll of the eyes, the bathroom was completely back to normal. Not even a speck of brick dust in sight. I'd left that place so fucked that I just came to the conclusion it was the fucking devil or something. But I began to unscrew the mirror. Once I peeled away the mirror, I noticed immediately behind my wall was a big wooden door with little bits of graffiti. I noticed my brother's face drop. He knew there should be another house there, or at least more of my fucking wall. I run to my tool cupboard and grab my sledge this time. I go fucking apeshit and smash the sink and the wall. I needed to know. Behind the wall was a door, as I'd expected. I opened the door and stuff fell out, like an old Hoover, bags, etc. It was a storage cupboard. My brother's face dropped. He was back to having reservations. He must have thought, "That's a fucking cupboard, mate." I was in disbelief, too. How could this massive warehouse be gone? I thought this until I noticed something off about it. The wall in the right was really old, dark brown brick. The wall in front, light brown, no older than a year. I got a bit closer and noticed the fucking mortar was still wet. I thought, fuck this. I kicked the wall and it bowed and slowly tumbled, revealing exactly what I wanted, the warehouse. I kicked down the rest of the wall, and my brother interrupted with, "I can hear that TV." We both climbed in, and I began pointing out things I'd mentioned to prove I wasn't nuts. Everything I pointed to, my brother's unease grew. He must have been thinking, "Okay, where's the guy?" We checked the throne out properly, and it was just a tall seat made of bricks stacked against the wall. We checked around a little more, but daren't stray too far from the hole we entered through, so we finished up poking around and decided to leave. As we turned around, he was stood about 10 meters away, just staring at the two of us. My brother, with zero hesitation, said, "Fuck no," and bolted for the hole. I was just stuck there, glued to the floor and deeply in shock. I tried to move, but to no avail. The man stood opposite me and the hole to the right of me, creating a triangle of me, him, and the hole. He muttered, "I thought I told you. You aren't meant to be here." I tried to reply, but I was just frozen. Then he moved as if to take a step toward me, and my body woke up. I sprinted for the hole, and as I got there, I turned back to see if he'd not moved like the last time. But instead he had. He'd moved to where I stood, and he was now on all fours, almost sniffing the floor or about to lick it or something. I didn't stick around to find out. When I got to my house's front door, my brother was there, white as paper and shaking like a leaf. With no hesitation and probably an undue lack of sympathy, I said, "I fucking told you." And we have each other a look before bolting back to my mom's house. When we got in, my mom said, "Well, is he lying?" My brother just told her to shut the fuck up, and we started ringing the police. We didn't know if he'd committed any crime or whatever, but surely the people was enough. The police said they'd come and look, but couldn't get someone out immediately. They came out early hours in the morning, and me and my brother, who'd not slept a wink, walked them to the house where they then went inside. I told them just before they entered to check behind the bathroom mirror, as it might be reattached. Officer 1 rolled his eyes, and Officer 2 was already opening the door. They went inside, and about 15 minutes later they came back out. Officer 2 threw up in the bin immediately, and Officer 1 told me to go back to my mom's where they'd inform us of what they found after they did some police stuff like calling it in, etc. When they got to my mom's, they asked everyone to sit down and said behind the mirror was a gap of about 2 feet before the next house. In between the two houses was what seemed like 5 to 10 semi-decayed and recently deceased animals, such as dogs and cats, they assumed. I interrupted and said, "What about the fucking warehouse?" They assured me there was no warehouse, but definitely something to look into. After weeks or months of dribs and drabs of information from the police, they finally gave us a definitive answer. Next door to us, there had been a man who used to live there. This house had metal on the windows and had been abandoned for years, before I'd moved in anyway. And he had several special needs. I asked what he looked like, and they described him as wearing glasses and long receding hair. I said, "That's the guy." But they replied, "He died in that house about 9 years ago." I was in disbelief. There was no warehouse, as they'd ripped down the two houses entirely. There was no man, as he died almost a decade ago. No TV, no peephole, no throne. I was at a loss, thinking maybe me and my brother are fucking nuts. Maybe my house was haunted. Maybe this, maybe that. Until the other week I drove through my old street and past my old house. And in place of my old house was a new build. In the front yard of this new build was a man. Dirty overalls, long greasy hair and thick glasses. He looked up to meet eyes with me, and as I stared back, he shot me back a smug little grin, baring his rotten yellow teeth. In shock, I stopped the car. I rolled down my passenger window and spoke. "Who are you?" He uttered back almost proudly, "The man of your dreams." I just rolled my window up, drove home, and cried like a baby. I don't know if this man will be behind my next mirror or is already in the one I've got. But one thing's for sure, I'm not going to find out.